Okay, y'all. So here's the whole story. Here's the scoop and where we stand right now. So again, I went to go do my paint and sip night. Car approached me, and I didn't know they were approaching me. They pulled into this little turn, and the license plate number was S as in Sam, F as in Frank, E as in Edward, 0045. And as I sat there, they had their music playing. I'm thinking they're with their girlfriend or whatever. They're not paying me any mind. Like I said, hanging out here since last October or so. Um, that was the situation. You know, that's the situation that usually I found out that these people ain't thinking about you. They done brought their person, whoever they came to bring, and so it's not a problem, right? So what ends up happening is this person starts, and this is what they'll do is they'll start yelling out, "Hey!" They'll start yelling out, "Hey, you know, how you doing, such and such." And if you ignore them, then they'll start, "Do you need anything? Do you need anything?" And you know, you keep ignoring them. And so at this point, I'm realizing I need to hurry up and get out of there. So I end up packing all my stuff quickly, all the paints that I just set out, packing them out quickly. He keeps going. So what I'm concerned about is that when I leave this park, you know, with my stuff, this person's going to follow me, and people are going to assume that it's okay for him to follow me, which is not okay for him to follow me, and they know, and that he knows me. So I yell out, "Hey, everybody! You know, whoever's in earshot, I want you to let you know that this white vehicle, I do not know this person. License plate number S as in Sam, F as in Frank, E as in Edward, 0045. I don't know this person. You know, this person is harassing me. You know." And so then he says, "You know, I'm a police officer. I could call and have you arrested, such and such and such." And you know, at this point, you know, what I've learned is not to say anything back to those people because they want your interaction and attention. So I don't say anything. I continue to put my stuff together. As I'm doing this, there's a white Hispanic guy on the other side, about 5'4". License plate number is SHH6879. And he's like, "Ah, da, 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 you're dumb, whatever, whatever, whatever." And the thing is, because last week he tried to speak to me, and I said, "You know, listen, you know, I'm not here to socialize. I'm just here to meditate and relax and work on my own personal things." And then as I started to empathize with him and say, "Hey, I'm sorry that, you know, I'm sorry that you know, I'm not trying to be rude, whatever." He says, "Blah, blah, 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 don't talk to me. That's what you said to me." And I'm kind of taken aback because I'm like, fine, that's good because I didn't say anything, but I don't want to talk to you, right? And so then what ends up happening from there, what ends up happening from there is, what ends up happening from there is then, you know, he comes over because he's emboldened now because he understands the conversation that I don't want to talk to this guy. So this guy doesn't, I don't want to talk to him either. So he comes over and they both start jumping on me verbally together, right? And so then, you know, I'm still packing my, and I'm like, you know, letting everybody know, whoever can hear me, that this guy's license plate number is SH86879. He lives on the other side of the park. He tried to speak to me last week and I wasn't interested. And now they're coming together. So if you see something, say something, you know. And so then at that point, you know, I'm starting to pack up again. And so I'm packing up, I'm going to get my little crock pot and I'm going to leave the park. So as I'm getting my crock pot to leave the park, the guy with the red hoodie, the white guy, he comes over to where I am, and he starts saying, "Oh, you don't have nothing to say now, you dumb such and such." And I'm thinking to myself, I had nothing to say to you this entire time. What I was speaking was to everybody that was listening so they could hear what's going on, that I don't have anything to do with you or this guy. And then the guy in the white Jeep has said, well, both of them have white Jeeps. The guy with the SFE, the black guy, says, "Oh, you know, well, he knows me. He knows me by name." And so the guy in the red hoodie gets into the Jeep with him. And I guess, and I said, "Well, y'all should have spent time talking to each other than talking to me." So he drops him off, and that red hoodie guy, after the guy drops him off, comes back over to where I am. Again, you know, accosting me. So at this point, I'm like, I definitely need to call the police. So I come back over to this side and I connect to Wi-Fi. I call the police. When I call the police officer comes out and I run up to him and I tell him all that's happening. As I'm sitting here telling him all that's happening, you can clearly see the guy in the red hoodie under the pavilion, right? You can clearly see him there. And so then, I tell the officer that I can see him right there. So then instead of going to the pavilion, he goes to the guy's truck first and goes looking through the truck and everything like that, right? And so then the guy ends up knowing my name because maybe a couple of, like back in October or so, there was a guy like in a red maroon truck or whatever. And this individual was just like, this individual was like, I mean, he was like stalking me, you know, and of course I didn't know any better, so I was friendly. You know, he was like, hi, my name is such and such. I'm like, yeah, I'm such and such. I just checked to make sure I'm okay and I'm safe and whatever, whatever, right? So he knew my name. And so when I ended up having to call the police about him, he says, when I ended up having to call the police about him, he says, the police officer asked me, well, how does he know your name? And I'm like, because I gave it to him, you know? And so it goes through this whole thing. And then I even just stopped coming to the park together. And this is the red maroon truck, SGD 78, 79, something like that. And so, and it's a white guy, like 60-ish. So, and then the video I made about the Get Along gang, they're still here. While I'm going through all this craziness and madness at the park, they're still here. So that's how he knows my name. So now he's calling out my name, yelling out my name all over the place, you know. And so I think, like I said, last week I had to work on the Redeemed ministry because of that. And now this week I have to work on the singles ministry. And the singles ministries and all those things that are tied to it, because again, being a single woman and being out here, these are the things that are happening. And, you know, wanting to have your free personal agency and space. And I think that the police officer that came out the first time, I think that he, you know, he knew the guy was there, so he's intentionally avoiding him so he couldn't get his information, right? And I think that when, you know, I said that the guy had walked back over here, I think again, you know, he was sitting there and watched the guy as he came over here, you know, and still didn't say anything. So that's what it is. And it's really, there is really a systemic barrier against all of this. You know, it's a systemic barrier for, and I hate to say this, for black women. And I started for women of Afro descent. And I started writing about this earlier. And, you know, I stopped. And it definitely is something, and so they're sending someone else out, is what they said. I don't think they really are. So I'm going to go ahead and leave because I think really, you know, and I've known this for a while, when you do a resume on people, and I think I need to talk to the library about this too. When you do a resume on people, you know, you would never hire someone with the background of some of these companies and agencies that we use, you know, because you see the results that you get and they're not good. But anyways, that's basically the gist of it. And so that SFE number, I don't think they ever addressed it. And I don't think they addressed it because it's a possibility that maybe this person is some entry level, you know, whatever, and so on and so forth. And so when the police officer brought me over there, and this is how disrespectful it was, the police officer brought me over there, he says, oh, did you try to get me in trouble, you know, try to make it seem like I'm not doing my job, blah, blah, blah. It's 8 minutes now. So yeah, so they're supposed to send someone else out because I want to make sure that they at least look up this SFE number for whatever vehicle this is, right? And the police officer says, oh, I'm not going to say anything about whether this person lives out there or not, you know what I mean? And I think he has a relationship with this guy, you know, some type of relationship with him. So that's where it is on that. And it's the most insane thing ever. And I talked about the insanity with the Get Along gang. And that's still going. For me to go through all of that over there, and then for all this to be happening over here at the library. And for me, all I was doing was trying to have my paint and sip, eat my dinner, and then come back and get some more work in. And then after all of that, you know, I went over here with the officer. The guy that's laying, this big 6'5'8" guy that's laying, sleeping on the front, he's asking me if I know this guy. I'm like, no, I don't know this guy. Not only do I not know this guy, but I'm being kind to this person, and you know, and I'm saying, hey, and you can see me on the recording, you know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to disturb you, I just have an emergency going on. And basically he's just like, you ain't sorry, I don't care, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? And then earlier today, so a lot of these things are operating around women and around women and women vulnerability. Earlier today, and I told the officer this story, usually I say to myself, I don't speak to anyone. I was going to CVS. I cut through the back because I had to get my little glasses. And this ties into the counterfeit money thing from last week. Um, I had to get my glasses. So for me to get my glasses, I had to walk 6 or 7 miles outside on the other side of town, right? And so with me walking at 6 or 7 miles on the other side of town, I cut through the back of CVS parking lot, and then where the front parking lot, there's a lot of traffic and it's congested. So I wanted to make sure. So I wanted to make sure that I'm not walking where all this traffic is, right? And so as I'm doing that, I walk where the cars are facing and see, this is how everything is complicit. I walk where the cars are facing the tree line. And so as I'm walking where the cars are facing the tree line, I hear somebody call out to me. Now, prior to that, I walked into Simply 10, which is like a little Fashion Sense kind of store, if y'all remember Fashion Sense. And I asked if they had reading glasses. The lady there recognized me and says, hey, yeah, we don't have reading glasses. And she says, and she seems like she knows me, and she's real warm and sweet. She happens to be a lady that I visited a church with. Again, churches are inherently evil. There's some good people in there that are not always good at all times, but they are good some of the time. So he was there. She was there. And I was like, that's a pleasant surprise. So when I walked through the CVS parking lot and get to the other side, somebody's calling out to me, and I'm just like, hey, I can't really see you, I can't hear you. And so eventually the person gets out of the car, and it's a young black male between the ages of 20, 30, big round head, dark skin, mustache, no eyebrows, long black shirt, and some gray shorts, like sporty shorts, and some slides and some black socks. And he drives for something called Sparks or something like that. But he tried to solicit me in the car, because I think what happened was that the car wash people started coughing because they could hear the conversation. And he was just like, well, do you prefer to walk, because I'll give you a ride, whatever. I'm like, okay, fine, that's fine. I usually don't, but, I'll take one. And then the whole time my skin is crawling, I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling comfortable. Are you going to put me in a ditch somewhere? And comes to find out he's trying to solicit me. I was like, oh no, I got to get out now. And he was just like, okay, don't worry about it, no charge. I'm like, what? So the turnaround with this white Hispanic guy in this SHH 6879 Jeep with the broken left white fender. The turnaround with him was, I was telling him, hey, I don't want to speak to anyone here. I'm trying to do my own thing, whatever, whatever. And then I try to soften it and be nice. So I was just like, hey, look, I'm not trying to be rude. It's just that, I have a lot that I have to use my brain for, and that is not part of it. And he was just like, oh, no, don't talk to me, don't talk to me. And I was kind of shocked because I was just like, that's exactly what I want. So he says, so I didn't say anything else, And he said, and I was packing up my stuff to leave. He said, well, you got to be back because I know where you live. I know where you live, And so that's that, right? And so it's a turnaround. It's like a turnaround when you speak to them, and they try to engage you and get you loud. And so in this situation, because it's late at night and I was leaving and I was packing my stuff to leave, I had to make sure everybody knew that I did not want this guy following me. You know what I'm saying? And then how the library is complicit in all this, they have people that are living on the patio. Now, the Get Along gang has died down a whole lot since the Get Along gang has died down a whole lot since, I first reported about that. But then the egos are so big. Like I said, the ego with the police officer. I called the police officer, said you could send him back because I wanted to make sure the SFE number was taken care of, right? But, he was just like, are you trying to make it seem like I'm not doing my job? No, that's not it at all. I try to be consistent in what I do. I always get case numbers whenever there's an event involved, right? And so So he put it as a status 3, which means that something happened, but he's just going to write a small little report about it, you know. But you know, there's a situation. This guy who came out here impersonating a police officer, you know, and then said that he knew this other guy. So that could really be implicit and could really causing a problem, you know. And it's just so much. And then, and not wanting to report it, maybe because that guy could possibly be a police officer, you know. And then when I called the police again, no one showed up. They still haven't showed up. So it's crazy. And then on top of that, with the library situation, you know, I gave out my card. My handwritten card that I took a lot of time to make to one of the librarians because, you know, when we were talking to get along gang, the only reason I said anything about that was because I don't want to be implied, you know, if something happens, because I'll be out here working and stuff, you know. And so, you know, and then I took it off the subject because I want to make it sure that it's known that, you know, that's not my business. I'm not trying to be involved in all of that, right? And so we started talking about the dogs, and I talked about a play that I've written. And so I was like, hey, I wanted to share the play with her because she does the children's thing. And so I don't really look at people that much, and she has gained a lot of weight. So I just mentioned, you know, hey, you know, I really don't look at people that much because I'm so focused on what I'm doing. But I noticed that you gained a few pounds, you know, and I said, I have too. And I just wanted to let you know because I wish somebody would have told me when it was coming. But I didn't know she was super offended by that. She was so offended to the point where she took the chair out of where I think she had originally set that up probably for me. But she took it away. And then she was like, oh, nobody is from administration. So I guess when the head librarian or whatever came, maybe she made a mention of it, and you could tell she was salty about that. So I said, well, you know, I understand, I respect that. You know, there was no intention to be disrespectful to you. It's just that I know that there's a lot of times for me personally where people are talking behind my back and in front of my face at the same time, you know, so forth and so on. I'd be glad if someone say. But anyways, with this police situation, now there's somebody else there, and he's probably changed up his shirt or something, you know, changed up his shirt. But they do this thing where they do this whistle, you know, just to let them know, or just to intimidate you and let you know that they're there, you know. So that's the other thing. And I don't think this other cop is coming out. So, you know, just going to make the call, let them know. And that's it. But I'll handle this tomorrow. And this is so crazy. But, you know, the part of it, just like when I went through that legal situation, it's like so much. But the thing is that this is the work that I'm supposed to be doing. This is the work, providing a voice for the marginalized, you know, and seeing all of these different systemic things that come into play, you know. And then the next lady that I talked to, I think what happens is that they give you a soft person first when you call dispatch. And then if it's a situation where that soft person is too soft or something like that, that's when they escalate it to a person that don't give a fart. You know what I'm saying? And so they're just like, you know, are you going to call another police officer out or not? And they already know that me calling a police officer out is a problem, because when I called the first one just to get the case number, he says, are you trying to make me look bad? Trying to make me look like I'm not doing my job? You see? So that, and then I think that officer is actually kind of involved because the guy was walking towards me and the police officer was sitting way in the back. So he had to watch him walk towards me. And then as we were sitting and talking over here together, the guy was walking down that street on a mission looking for me. He was looking for me. And now this other officer's not going to come out. So the only real justice that you're going to get is not through them, but at least, again, providing a voice for yourself, if nothing else, if possible. So I'm going to end that